The training grounds of the Galactic Military Academy stretched across 3 kilometers of reinforced durasteel, designed to withstand the most brutal combat simulations the galaxy could devise. Kate adjusted her tactical vest, ignoring the curious stares from the other cadets. Being the only human in a class of apex predators had its drawbacks. The Vraxians towered over her, their obsidian scales gleaming under the artificial suns. The Krell flexed their forearms, mandibles clicking in what she'd learned was casual conversation. And then there were the Thornbacks, massive feline-like creatures whose species had dominated their home system for millennia before achieving spaceflight. Kate had learned quickly that respect wasn't given freely here. It had to be earned, often through blood and broken bones. "Attention, cadets!" Commander Zrel's voice boomed across the training ground. The Vraxian officer's tail swept the ground, a sign of his agitation. "Today's exercise will test your ability to work in mixed-species units. You will be paired randomly." Kate's stomach tightened. Random pairing meant she could end up with anyone, and most of the cadets had made their feelings about humans abundantly clear. Humans were weak. Humans were slow. Humans were prey animals who had stumbled into the stars through sheer luck. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the pairs. Kate's eyes found her name quickly. Kate Sullivan, Fang, Thornback Juvenile. A ripple of amusement passed through the assembled cadets. Kate turned to see her assigned partner, and her breath caught. Fang wasn't just any Thornback. He was one of the 3 cubs who had been terrorizing the human cadets since orientation. At nearly 7 feet tall with muscle-corded limbs and retractable claws that could shred combat armor, Fang looked every bit the apex predator his species claimed to be. Worse, his 2 siblings flanked him, their amber eyes fixed on Kate with undisguised hostility. Kate approached, keeping her spine straight and her gaze level. She'd learned that showing fear was the quickest way to lose any shred of respect she might earn. "Looks like you drew the short straw." "Human," Fang's brother rumbled, his vocal cords producing sounds that the universal translator struggled to process. "Try not to slow him down too much." Kate ignored him, stopping 3 feet from Fang. The young Thornback looked down at her, his lip curling to reveal fangs as long as her fingers. Then he growled. It was a deep, subsonic sound that Kate felt in her chest, a primal warning that screamed danger to every survival instinct humanity had evolved over millions of years. Around them, other cadets stepped back, giving space to what they clearly expected to become a violent confrontation. The growl built, resonating through the training ground. Fang's siblings joined in, creating a chorus of predatory threat that would have sent any sensible prey animal fleeing in terror. Kate felt her heart hammering. Her hands trembled. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to run, to submit, to show her throat and hope for mercy. Instead, she thought of Earth, of humanity's long, brutal climb from the caves, of the saber-toothed cats and dire wolves and cave bears that had tried to keep humans down, of the fact that humans had survived not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by being too stubborn to quit and too crazy to know when they were beaten. Kate planted her feet. She leaned forward, putting herself inches from Fang's massive head, and then from somewhere deep in her chest she produced a sound that no human should have been able to make. She snarled. It wasn't the polite clearing of a throat or a shouted curse. It was a raw, guttural sound of pure defiance, the noise of a creature that had clawed its way to the top of Earth's food chain through sheer, bloody-minded determination. It was the sound of a species that had looked at the hostile universe and decided to conquer it anyway. The training ground fell silent. Fang's ears flattened against his skull. His siblings stopped mid-growl, their mouths hanging open in shock. Around them, cadets from a dozen species stared in disbelief. Kate held the snarl for 3 more seconds, her eyes locked with Fang's, before she let it fade into the silence. When she spoke, her voice was perfectly calm. "Are we going to stand here posturing all day, or are we going to complete this assignment?" For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, Fang's ears rose. His tail, which had been lashing in agitation, went still. When he spoke, his tone had changed entirely. You challenged me." There was no anger in his voice, only a strange mixture of shock and what might have been respect. "No prey species has ever—" "I'm not prey," Kate interrupted. "And neither is my species. We didn't survive ice ages and megafauna and our own worst instincts by rolling over and showing our bellies. So either accept that we're partners for this exercise, or explain to Commander Zrel why you're too intimidated by a human to complete the assignment. Fang's siblings bristled, but Fang himself tilted his head, studying Kate with new eyes. Then shockingly he laughed. It was a barking, coughing sound, but unmistakably amusement. I think, he said slowly, that I may have misjudged your species. He extended one massive paw, claws retracted. Partners then, and Kate? Don't ever let anyone tell you that humans are prey animals. Kate took his paw, her hand disappearing in his grip. I won't. And Fang? Don't ever mistake kindness for weakness. My species invented war as an art form. As they moved toward the starting position for their exercise, Kate heard whispers spreading through the assembled cadets. The human had snarled back. The human had refused to submit. The human had looked death in the face and laughed. Commander Zrel watched the exchange with an expression that might have been satisfaction. He'd seen humans in combat before, during the Kepler conflicts. He knew what the other species were only beginning to learn. Humanity hadn't reached the stars through luck. They'd fought for every inch, survived every setback, and refused to accept defeat even when all logic said they should. They were persistence predators on a galactic scale, and they'd brought that same relentless determination to the Academy. As the exercise began, Kate and Fang moved as a unit, the massive Thornback providing raw power while Kate's tactical mind plotted their course. They worked together with surprising efficiency, and by the time the simulation ended, they'd posted the third best time of the day. As they left the training ground, Fang's siblings approached. The largest one, who'd mocked Kate earlier, looked at her with new eyes. My brother says you're not prey, he rumbled. What does that make you? Kate smiled, showing teeth. Human. And if you're smart, you'll remember that the most dangerous thing in any ecosystem isn't the biggest or the fastest. It's the one that refuses to quit. She walked away, leaving 3 Thornback cubs to contemplate the terrifying reality of a species that had looked at the galaxy's apex predators and decided they weren't impressed. Behind her, she heard Fang's quiet words to his siblings. I think we may have found worthy allies, or perhaps something more dangerous. Either way, I'm glad they're on our side. Kate smiled. Another battle won, another day survived at the Academy, and another small step toward showing the galaxy what humanity was really made of. The message was clear. Humans might not have claws or armor or natural weapons, but they had something far more dangerous. They had the audacity to refuse to lose.